IDF airstrikes in Iran have been continuous and ongoing, now targeting dozens of command centers linked to the Islamic Republic's internal security forces and the besieged militia. Defense Minister Israel Katz says any leader appointed by the regime to replace Ali Khamenei will be an unequivocal target for elimination. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz has the latest.
The IDF says it carried out a major wave of overnight airstrikes in Tehran, targeting dozens of command centers linked to Iran's internal security forces and the Basij militia, which operates under the Revolutionary Guards. Israeli Air Force jets, acting on precise intelligence, dropped dozens of munitions on facilities used by the regime to maintain control and support operational decision-making. The military says it also struck Iran's ground forces supply and logistics center, as well as missile launchers and other military systems. Explosions were reported across Tehran and in other Iranian cities, including Isfahan, Shiraz, and Qom, as the conflict continues to escalate. Reports from Iranian sources say Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the slain Ayatollah, has emerged as the leading candidate to become the next supreme leader. He is seen as having strong ties to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and hardline factions. Defense Minister Katz warns any leader appointed by the Iranian terror regime to continue leading the plan to destroy Israel, threaten the U.S. and the free world, will be an unequivocal target for elimination. Katz added, it does not matter what his name is or where he hides. The IDF spokesman says the army has now crossed the munitions used in Operation Rising Lion last year, adding that fighter jets have carried out some 1,600 sorties since Saturday. The IDF confirmed that Daoud al-Zeda, the acting commander of the Lebanon Corps and Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Quds Force, was killed in a strike in Tehran. The IDF also announced that the Air Force destroyed a secretive, partially underground nuclear site on the outskirts of Tehran. The Army says it monitored the activity of Iranian nuclear scientists and carried out a precise strike on the compound, describing it as a significant blow to Iran's military nuclear program. Prime Minister Netanyahu told Fox News he does not expect an endless war.
I hear the people are saying, well, you're going to have an endless war here. You're not going to have an endless war. Now, of course, it's up to the people of Iran in the final count to change the government. But we are creating, America and Israel together are creating the conditions for them to do so.
U.S. President Donald Trump says many of the Iranian figures Washington had considered as potential future leaders had been killed in joint U.S.-Israel bombing campaign. Trump also forcefully rejected the notion that Israel had provoked the war. ILTV's Kalev Ben-David has more.
At a White House meeting with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, President Trump was asked about regime change in Iran. The problem, he said, is finding an acceptable replacement for the slain supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei.
Do you have someone in mind right now? Because you said all the people you did have in mind have been taken out. What do you think?
Well, most of the people we had in mind are dead. So, you know, we had some in mind from that group that is dead. And now we have another group. They may be dead also, based on reports. So I guess you have a third wave coming in. Pretty soon we're not going to know anybody.
Trump warned that the worst-case scenario would be that a new Iranian leader could be as bad as the previous regime, saying you go through this and in 5 years you realize you put somebody in who's no better. He also rejected claims that Israel dragged the United States into war, saying, if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand. And he added that he acted because he believed Iran was preparing to attack Israel and other regional states.
Based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first. And I didn't want that to happen. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand.
Trump claimed Iran's Navy, Air Force, and air defenses have been knocked out, and he described the operational goals moving forward.
Our objectives are clear. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis, and their capacity to produce brand new ones, and pretty good ones they make. Second, we're annihilating their Navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's #1 sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon, never going to have a nuclear weapon. I said that from the beginning. They're never going to have a nuclear weapon. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders.
Turning to the war in the north, Israel has issued a direct warning to officials in Lebanon: leave within 24 hours or be targeted. The IDF struck more than 160 Hezbollah targets, including command centers and Radwan force operatives, after rockets hit central Israel. Ground troops are also advancing in southern Lebanon to protect Galilee communities in Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu warned Hezbollah made a grave mistake by entering the conflict, and Israel will respond with even greater force. ILTV's Devil Klein has the latest.
The IDF has issued an unusual and direct threat to Iranian regime officials in Lebanon, warning them to leave the country within 24 hours or face being targeted. Army spokesman Colonel Avichai Adrei said the military will not tolerate any presence of representatives of the Iranian terror regime in Lebanon, adding that after the 24-hour deadline, there will be no safe place for them. The warnings came after the terror group carried out its first long-range attacks since the start of the Iran war. Yesterday, Hezbollah fired 3 rockets toward Tel Aviv and the Haifa area, setting off sirens across central Israel and parts of the north. Israel is expanding operations in the north, with ground troops having been authorized to advance in southern Lebanon in an enhanced forward defense posture to protect the Galilee communities. Defense Minister Israel Katz says the move is aimed at protecting Galilee communities from Hezbollah fire. More than 160 targets have been struck in the past 24 hours, including command centers, weapon sites, and Radwan force operatives. The IDF confirmed the killing of a senior Iranian Quds figure and a Palestinian Islamic Jihad commander in the strikes. Reports say the Lebanese army has also arrested Hezbollah members near Saida. The move comes as Beirut signals it wants to assert greater state control, even as fighting between Israel and Iran-backed forces continues to intensify. Israel says it will continue to strike Hezbollah infrastructure and vows that any Iranian presence in Lebanon will now be a target. Flanked by IDF Chief Eyal Zamir and Defense Minister Israel Katz at an Air Force base, the Prime Minister issued this warning.
אנחנו כבר הגבנו בעוצמה ונגיב בעוצמה יתרה ונוספת. ממשלת לבנון צריכה להבין, והעם בלבנון צריך להבין, שחיזבאללה גורר אותם למלחמה לא להם, רק בגלל מותו של אותו מרצח המוני, שאין להם שום קשר אליו. הם צריכים לדאוג לעצמם, וכדאי שיעשו זאת בהקדם. אנחנו נמשיך לעשות מה שדרוש להגנתנו.
Sirens sounded across central Israel this morning as the regime launched another volley of ballistic missiles. Israel Fire and Rescue Services say multiple fragments fell in a central Israeli city, including at least one piece that landed on a major road. Crews were dispatched to the scene, but no direct injuries were reported. A short time later, sirens sounded in northern Israel following rocket launches from Lebanon. Again, no injuries were reported. In the afternoon, an additional barrage of rockets was fired by the Islamic regime and Hezbollah together at central and northern Israel. Several points of impact were reported in the center, with 2 reported injuries. The afternoon barrage in Israel also followed a ballistic missile attack from Iran targeting Turkey, which was intercepted by NATO forces. Meanwhile, in Iran, the Israeli Air Force reported that they have taken out 300 missile launchers so far, and that this morning the Adir F-35 fighter jet successfully shot down an Iranian Yak-130 fighter jet over Iranian airspace, marking the world's first ever shoot-down of a manned fighter jet by an F-35. In the naval battle, CENTCOM reports that the U.S. forces have sunk 17 Iranian naval ships, including a submarine. In the afternoon, an Iranian tanker was also sunk off the coast of Sri Lanka by the United States, and over 100 have been reported missing in the incident, with 78 reported injuries. U.S. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth announced this afternoon that Israel and the United States have achieved complete air superiority over the Iranian skies. In addition, the IDF reported today that in the conflict, 11 Israelis have died in airstrikes from the Islamic regime since hostilities began Saturday, and over 1,000 injured so far. Well, joining us now to discuss the progress of this campaign against the Islamic Republic of Iran is Jonathan Schanzer from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Jonathan, thanks for joining us today on the broadcast. Always great to have you here. I'd like to start by asking you about President Trump's recent comments about the future leadership of Iran. Now, we know the Iranian people are quite passionate on their opposition leader being Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, but Trump didn't seem so keen. He also mentioned that those they had in mind were killed, despite the fact that many of those eliminated were truly regime hardliners. So my question, is this a bluff? Where do you think the Trump administration really stands on this issue?
Look, I think we first need to acknowledge something that, installing a monarch in Iran after the toppling of a clerical dictatorial regime doesn't exactly sound like an American interest. And I think that may be one of the reasons why you hear some lukewarm responses from the president about the Crown Prince. But I do think that we could probably agree that if the Crown Prince were to return to Iran and there was some kind of constitutional monarchy that was set up where this man could serve as a figurehead because he rallies the Iranian people around the old flag, and that there is a sense of rebuilding history, I can imagine then you could then hold elections and you could kind of walk and chew gum here. And so I think I don't want to rule out the Crown Prince having any role, but I think the president is right to be looking for democratic alternatives to what is going on in Iran right now. That is, I think, ultimately the goal. But I also need to just warn, we're not in the process of state building. We're not trying to do what we did in Iraq or Afghanistan. I think it is far more modest what the president has in mind. But, look, the fact that we don't know what the Trump doctrine is as it relates to Iran, pretty similar to what we see across a wide range of other foreign policy questions. The president likes to have maximum flexibility. He doesn't like to tip his hand either to allies or enemies alike. And I think we're going to continue to see these sorts of question marks swirling until the military mission is achieved. And then we can start to get down to the business of what happens next.
All right, Jonathan, I know you were also an expert on Lebanon, so I want to ask you about the recent developments going on there, too. We see even the Lebanese government not wanting this conflict, but Hezbollah nonetheless picking up arms yet again. How much of a threat is this for Israel?
Yeah, look, I don't like the fact that Israel's fighting its two-front war. It's got missiles the size of a bus coming in from Iran, and now long-distance rockets coming in from Lebanon. There is a finite amount of air defenses that Israel has, and I question the necessity of this front right now. But that said, I do believe that the Israeli government, the IDF, the intelligence services believe that this is a moment of opportunity, that Hezbollah is weak and it can become weaker. It could even be dismantled or fully destroyed. And so this, I think, is being viewed as an opportunity. I think it's also a risk. It's a huge risk for Hezbollah, though. When they pick up their arms yet again and they try to tangle with the Israelis, they know that they're already depleted by something like 80%. Their leadership, their fighters are not what they were. And so this could be the death throes of Hezbollah. That's what the IDF is hoping for. It's what Bibi Netanyahu is hoping for. And quite frankly, it's what the Lebanese people are hoping for. We're seeing it right now out of the Lebanese government. They don't want Hezbollah to take up arms. They are now calling this illegal. They're saying that it is unlawful for Hezbollah to be doing any of this. And so this could be the predicate for the dismantling of Hezbollah in Lebanon while the Israelis take care of business from the skies.
Now, just before we wrap up, I do want to ask you about this most recent report that we saw from CNN discussing the possibility of the CIA considering arming certain Kurdish groups in Iraq to fight the Islamic regime. This is something causing a lot of controversy and chatter amongst Iranians who oppose any foreign group which seeks to divide Iranian territory, which includes some of these groups. What do we know about this initiative so far?
We don't know a lot, and I think rumors are swirling about it. This, of course, is sort of standard operating procedure for the U.S. military. We've done this in Syria, we've done it in Iraq, we've done it in Afghanistan, where we find willing partners to engage in military operations on our behalf with American intelligence, American arms, and American assistance, American funding. That would, I think, be normal. What's not right here, I think, when you talk to the average Iranian is, hey, why are you using a minority sectarian group to liberate our country? If the majority of Iranians are Persians, they're like not minority, not sectarian. They don't identify as Baluch or Arab or Kurd, why not use the everyday Iranians? And I think that's the question they're asking. It's a delicate question because I don't know how we get arms to everyday Iranians. I don't know how we get them the support. They, of course, every time we see the people come out in protest, we've seen mass slaughter on the part of the Iranian regime. Is this time different? I don't know. But working inward from the periphery would seem like a smart military strategy. The only question is, how does this sit with the Iranian people, the vast majority of them? And I think that's what we're going to hear debates about in the hours and days and maybe weeks to come.
All right, well, we'll be following that closely. I want to thank you so much for joining us today, Jonathan Schanzer from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Israel is under attack, and now is the time to stand strong together. The Islamic Republic's assaults are not only against Israel, but against the democratic values we share. In moments of challenge, strength is measured by action. The United States and Israel stand united, bound by freedom, security, and resilience. Israel Bonds remains a vital bridge to the Jewish state. Every investment sends a bold, unmistakable message of support. Now is the time to act. Invest in Israel Bonds at israelbonds.com or by scanning the QR code on your screen. Several European governments are boosting military deployments in the eastern Mediterranean after projectiles linked to the Islamic Republic were fired towards the British Royal Air Force Base at Akrotiri. Reports say at least one drone struck the runway, with additional missiles and drones targeting the island, a dramatic precedent involving fire towards a European Union territory. The Times of London reports Britain is preparing to send warships, including HMS Duncan, as Defense Secretary John Healey holds emergency talks. France is sending anti-missile and counter-drone systems to Cyprus, while Greece dispatched a naval vessel and fighter jets to protect the base. Prime Minister Keir Starmer faces criticism at home for insisting Britain is not a direct participant, even as the conflict nears European soil. In Paris, President Emmanuel Macron called for a UN Security Council meeting, warning of serious consequences for international peace and security. France, Germany, and Britain say they're ready for necessary and proportionate defensive actions against Iran. U.S. President Donald Trump announced the United States will also cut off all trade with Spain after Madrid refused to let U.S. bases be used for missions linked to strikes on the Islamic Republic. Take a look at Trump's comments.
Spain has been terrible. In fact, I told Scott to cut off all dealings with Spain. Spain, first of all, it started when every European nation, at my request, paid 5%, which they should be doing. And everybody was enthusiastic about it, Germany, everybody. And Spain didn't do it. And now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases. And that's all right. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it.
Global oil and gas prices surged as the U.S.-Israeli war on the regime disrupted energy exports across the Middle East. The regime has effectively closed the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most critical oil choke point, threatening to attack any ship trying to pass. This waterway normally carries around 20% of global oil and LNG exports. Ship traffic has slowed to a near standstill, with major carriers halting transits and insurers withdrawing war risk coverage. Vessels are being forced to anchor outside the strait. Crude has jumped above $85 per barrel, the highest since mid-2024, as markets fear supply shortages if Hormuz remains blocked. Energy markets remain extremely volatile, with shipping costs, freight rates, and risk premiums spiking. The Islamic Republic has warned it will strike all economic centers in the region, and oil prices could soar even higher. Joining us now from a bomb shelter in Israel is Shimona Geffen, the Director of Communications for Yad Ezra Shulamit. Shimona and her team are delivering food directly to Israel's elderly, disabled, and most vulnerable communities. Shimona, thank you so much for being with us again. Can you start by telling us about the situation on the ground here in Israel?
Thank you for having me. Right now, the situation in Israel is very tense. Sirens are going throughout the days. We are running in and out of bomb shelters. For all of us, it's frightening. We're living through very difficult times, but for the elderly, the vulnerable, and people living in poverty, it's even more difficult. Unfortunately, us at Yad Ezra B'Shulamit, we are experienced at operating during these times, but for many people don't realize that for the elderly and the handicapped individuals, wartime means that they are trapped. They cannot constantly run up and down the stairs to get to their bomb shelters, to get to their miklats. So what many of them are doing is they are staying in their miklats throughout the day with very little food, and what food they do have is running out.
So how does Yad Ezra B'Shulamit help? I mean, what are you guys doing on the ground to assist with this?
So the moment tensions escalated, we began preparing. Just this week, we purchased 2 million shekels worth of ready-to-eat food that can be stored in the bomb shelters, canned goods, crackers, tuna, anything that you can eat that doesn't need to be cooked. We are also preparing ready-cooked meals for Shabbat and ready-cooked meals for people. Our fleet of 15 trucks go from bomb shelter to bomb shelter, door to door, delivering food to people who need our help.
And how many people are you currently assisting? I know you guys have done a lot of work in the past in this as well, but in this conflict so far?
So on a regular basis, we feed over 60,000 people during the week. And with the last war, we realized how many more people need help during times of emergencies. So what we started doing, we started delivering ready cooked meals and food for the week for people that cannot get out to the shops, cannot cook their own meals. And when we delivered the food, we realized how the tears in the eyes, we realized how the relief that this gave to people and how much they needed it and how much it was just for their emotional well-being, their physical well-being. And we realized the important work that we are doing. Without us, these people would be just eating bread and pretzels throughout the day in their bomb shelters. While the IDF is fighting this battle and we are seeing miracles every single day, it's also our job to help the most vulnerable in Israel, to give them food and give them what they need. Please scan the QR code. Join us in this incredible mission, is helping everyone that we can. Every donation, big or small, will go to feeding someone. Please help us donate. Stand with Israel. Stand with us.
All right, well, we do have to leave it at that, but I want to thank you, Shimona, for all the work that you're doing and the organization. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Now, as Shimona mentioned, you can scan the QR code to donate to Yad Ezra B'Shulamit to support their efforts, helping them to deliver food during this critical time of war here in Israel. Well, Israel is preparing to gradually reopen its airspace overnight and into tomorrow in order to begin bringing home thousands of Israelis stranded abroad. Under the emerging plan, Ben Gurion Airport will operate 24 hours a day and reopen in a controlled, phased manner. In the first stage, 1 passenger aircraft per hour will be permitted to land. In the second stage, 2 aircraft per hour or 1 wide-body plane will be allowed, subject to security and operational concerns. The framework still requires final approvals. Israel's skies have been closed since the start of the joint U.S.-Israel campaign against the Islamic Republic on Saturday morning. And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Cloudy skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of 9 degrees Celsius or 49 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, we'll see clear skies alongside steady temperatures, seeing highs of 17 degrees Celsius or 63 degrees Fahrenheit. And hopefully, no rockets along with that. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all of your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels and keep up with us on social media. That's ILTV_Israel on all platforms. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Emily Schrader. Be well, and thank you for watching.